Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development Minister Thoko Didiza has announced an Agro-Energy Fund to the tune of 2.5 billion rand. Now, the fund will help farmers alleviate the effects of load shedding on irrigation and cold chain activities. Last month, AgriSA warned of lower food stock of certain food items on store shelves unless significant interventions are put in place to protect food producers from the escalating load shedding. Now, the minister says farmers will be able to receive grant funding between 500,000 and 1.5 million rand, depending on the scale of their operations. Well, to talk more about this fund and other issues, we are joined by Mooketsa Ramasodi. He's the Director General of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Gigi, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Wakamanas, and good morning to Wakakomendo and all the viewers.
Thank you very much. So, of course, it's a good development. It is, I imagine, has been welcomed with open arms by farmers. But let's start off with the criteria that will be used to determine whether a farmer actually qualifies to apply for the funding to invest in these alternative energy sources, or is it basically open to every farmer to apply?
For now, it is limited to three categories of farmers. Our large-scale commercial farmers who qualify for a 30% grant from government, and that would be supplemented by a 70% loan from the land bank. But the limitation there would be to a 1.5 million. Our medium-scale commercial farmers would be limited to 1 million, and the split there would be 50% grant from government and 50% loan from the land bank. And our small-scale farmers would be having a 70% grant and 30% loan from the land bank, and they would be limited to 500,000.
Good. I mean, AgriSA says, obviously, this is not enough, and they have emphasized that this is not enough to mitigate the impact of load shedding because it is a much bigger amount in order to become sustainable. But perhaps you can talk to us about the maths behind how the figures were determined.
The realization is that there are other interventions that were pronounced by the Minister of Finance. Like we had a taxable income deduction of 125% on the investment on renewables. There's also a 25% reduction in terms of the pressure that we are having, where you have got solar roof panels up to the value of 15,000 rand that was pronounced. There was also a bounce back loan that was there. So while we make an admission that this might not be enough, there are other incentives that are in place. But in terms of the calculations that we're having, we were looking at how much would it cost for a commercial farmer to come up with an alternative source of energy on a large commercial farm. We determined that that might cost in the region between 5 and 10 million. In terms of our own calculations, we thought that let us start off with a 1.5 million grant from government side. And let's ensure that at least we can be able to assist at the beginning, which is just part of what we are thinking, 133 commercial farmers, where we will set aside 200 million for the commercial, large commercial farmers, and we will have the other categories also getting the share. Our thinking process was also to say, at the end of the loan period, we will also explore other blended finance instruments that we are having in the sector in order to assist our farmers.
Okay, so this is an important word that you put out there, that this is, of course, a loan. So it's got to be paid back, correct, by the farmers if things ever do turn around. Is that the understanding?
The understanding is that this is sort of a blended finance mechanism that we are utilizing, where government would be giving for commercial farmers a 30% grant, which will equate to 1.5 million rand. So 1.5 million rands would be a grant that comes from government, meaning that 3.5 million of that would come as a loan to the farmer.
Okay, so...
And that goes for all the categories that are there.
And the kind of interest that they will be paying on this when obviously this fund is launched, what are we looking at in terms? I mean, is it obviously a fund that would be better priced than going via a bank? Obviously, you talk to the 1.5, but the rest of it, is that a better loan agreement as opposed to going the usual financial services route?
We are very determined to make it a better loan agreement with the land bank. And as we had indicated, the land bank, together with the department, would be coming out to the public just to outline the other areas of the loan that we'll be giving, the financing packaging that we are currently giving out. So in the next week, we will be outlining the whole package, the interest rates, including the terms in terms of how long would this be applicable for.
Yeah, all of those important details. I imagine that includes the small print that people would love to know about before they go and apply for this. But the fund who is going to operate and manage it? Is it falling under the land bank? Who will operate this fund?
The fund will be operated by the land bank. We have noted the request that came also from our industry that we should actually bring in more players. That would be something that we would in the future consider. But for now, the fund, the grant that has been given by government, which is 500 million, plus the loan component, would be solely operated by the land bank.
Okay. So is there a possibility that the fund can be integrated with the green energy funds that are with commercial banks so that more farmers can actually benefit from this?
We are looking broadly at it, but as you have seen the indication that this from our side was used from the budget that the department is currently having. In terms of our budget allocations and future budget allocations, we will look at the integrations that we can have and the synergies and complementarities that we can have with other funds that are there available on the market.
DG, there's obviously different departments that are lobbying for, certain things and exclusions from load shedding for certain commodities. Will the department be embarking on this at all from your perspective? So, in other words, just getting certain sectors excluded from load shedding?
Thank you very much for that question. In actual fact, the department is one of the first departments that started with this. Minister Didiza had started off with a setting up of a task team, and that task team had three areas that we are looking at. We had done an industry analysis on critical points that would be needed for us to continue with farming and also ensuring that there's food security. We have already engaged with ESCOM and other stakeholders to look at the energy challenges, and we have identified our short and medium term solutions that we need to stabilize energy supply in agriculture. At this moment, we are actually, through our provincial wings, we are able to engage with ESCOM to look at a possible solution, which is called curtailment, where there is engagements to ensure that agriculture is not negatively impacted. So those interventions are already happening in agriculture, with the first meeting that we have had this year in February.
Okay. I mean, the Red Meat Producers Organization is also warning that cattle and sheep meat prices could skyrocket in the next few months should vaccines for livestock continue to be in short supply. I know in your budget speech you actually touched on efforts to improve the availability of these vaccines and also to safeguard South African livestock against diseases. What is an update on the vaccines and the livestock issues?
The issue around vaccines is a very important issue for the South African agricultural sector. The Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development has been engaging with the livestock sector through a committee which is called the Animal Health Forum. And through the Animal Health Forum, the last meeting having been on Monday morning, just to look at where we are. There were alternative vaccines that the industry had volunteered through different pharmaceutical industries. We have had engagements, and one of those would be registered during the course of this week to ensure that there is the securing of the animal head health in South Africa. Relating to the Onderstepoort biological products, their engagements with the private sector also to beef up the capacity at the OBP to ensure that they are able to continue producing those vaccines. So there is a raft of interventions that we are having as the department, and the minister is leading in terms of this, to ensure that the OBP has got sufficient supply, and also the private sector in terms of alternative vaccines or vaccines that are coming into the market, that they are fast-tracked to be registered so that we secure our head health.
Okay. All right. So, DG, I'm wrapping up with you, but just the final sort of details that I need from you is if people, I suppose there's still a waiting period for the application for those funds. That's something that you're going to announce the details, or is there somewhere that interested farmers can go and visit in the meantime?
In the next week, we will be announcing the full details after the engagements with the Land Bank Board.
Fantastic.
We have got to just some of the criteria that we have put on the table.
All right, DG, thank you. We thank you for your time. Mooketsa Ramasodi, perhaps we'll invite him back once all of those details have been ironed out, and within the next week or so, we should know what it all entails to get those funds available. Of course, that is the DG of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, speaking about that Agro-Energy Fund to the tune of 2.5 billion rand to help farmers mitigate load shedding.